are down. Let's talk about NVIDIA. You still have analysts who are bullish on this one. I didn't get a chance to go through all your notes, so I'm not sure if this is going to be a bullish take. You tell me. The stock is a little bit lower off the back of this result. They beat. There's a little bit of concern about data center revenue. Tell me your thesis here.
Yeah, so here's the thing. If you look at what happened after hours, the stock was down about 5%. It rebounded. It's only down, if you just take a look right now.
Less than a percent.
Yeah, less than a percent. So take a look at the price action. You see traders are stepping in, buying it back up. From a fundamental standpoint, 46.7 billion in revenue, up 56% for the quarter, and then data center revenue up 56% year over year. And I've been watching the show this morning. Here's what I noticed: nobody's talking about the buyback. All right, $60 billion share buyback plan that was authorized by the company. So even if nobody else wants to own it, they want to own at least 60 billion of their own shares. And so I love what's going on here. They're also diversifying away from the hyperscaler, which is your Amazon, which is your Google and your Meta. They're selling chips to Saudi. And when you look at the big picture as a trader at home thinking about this, they hit these numbers without selling any chips to China in the last quarter, without selling any to China. So that means once we get it, I look at it like Tim Cook and what they were going through with iPhones being tariffed and taxed. We will get through this. And when we get through this, that's going to be all upside and all gravy for the stock. So I like it. I'm bullish.
Okay, so we'll go through your trade strategy in just a minute. Rick, what do you notice about this chart when you take a look at this one?
As you kind of joked, Diane, NVIDIA is not exactly a mom and pop shop that no one cares about. It's a really important part of the stock market. So it's one that we've all kind of been watching with bated breath here. And when we look at the price action, it's almost kind of anticlimactic in some ways, I guess, because we topped out right around the mark near 185 that represented these old highs that we experienced already. But we haven't really seen a lot of net movement after some initial swings to the upside and the downside. Now we can see that price still, for now, remains above our yellow 21-day exponential moving average. That moving average comes in right around 178. That could be a short-term area to watch to the downside here. Notice as well that we have progressed beyond our upward sloping channel shape here between our two blue dashed lines. So we have given up that trend. You could draw a more shallow sloping white trend line here going across these lows and connecting here. So that would project potential support perhaps around 172 or so. A bit further down from there, we can see we had high and then low at our green line here, 165, matching up with our orange 63-day EMA. So those might be some notable downside levels to watch. As we look at RSI, our measure of momentum, we can see that we were experiencing some bearish divergence heading into this earnings event here. Price and RSI showed a mismatch here. Still below that trend line, still bullish, but heading downward and deteriorating a bit here. Volume, right around 180, that would be a notable area to hold. It starts to pick up again just above 170, and then the real heavy volume isn't really until you get down here near 145 or so.
Headline, quick snapshot on these numbers.
Well, I thought they were very solid. I think that the reason the shares are trading a little lower is that they didn't include China in their guide, and that, some people were hoping there was some China sales in there, maybe a little firmer stance that China sales could get going. And then the sales of their new Blackwell chip were actually a little below what some folks estimated because it takes time to ramp that product. But their guidance was really solid. The core growth outside of China is just really good, mid-teens growth. And then there should be more great growth in the fourth quarter. So I think we're all systems go. And then one final thing, Will, they did mention on the call a very huge TAM, total addressable market, by the end of the decade. This is something we've been calling for. That really implies revenue by the end of the decade, if they grow along with the industry, to be over $600 billion, which is just a huge number, which means the stock can even double from here, if not more. So we're pretty excited about the results, although we understand why it probably taking a breather. But we're not a day trader here.
I'm really interested in touching on that TAM point. And it comes back to another question I had, which is at the moment, the scale of concentration of their customer base, which, they don't break out who is who, but we were discussing this earlier with Christina, 44% of the data center chip sales were two customers, probably Google and Microsoft. Can the TAM really grow to be that big based on the advantage that those 2 or 3 customers are going to have building their own products over the next couple of years. If they're the only ones grabbing these chips in large numbers, do you think that, in fact, the TAM's going to be a lot smaller because there's only going to be 2 or 3 buyers in a few years because those hyperscalers' competition is going to evaporate if they can't compete and get their hands on the chips in the short term?
Yeah, well, it is something we grapple with quite a bit. The customer concentration and being like half the sales being 4 or 5 customers. But the worst thing that would happen is if one broke away and won. So if one company were running away with AI, and then maybe one company would be able to hoard all the spending and whatnot. But it doesn't look like that right now. There's very healthy competition among the top 4 and then others. OpenAI is there, as well as a few other mega startups that really aren't startups. They're actually almost hyperscalers themselves. And then there's the notion about sovereign AI, where you see these huge Middle Eastern and European economies needing to invest in their own infrastructure due to not only national interests in their economies, but national security. So I see it being very big. I don't want one company to run away with the thing so that they hoard all the spending. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be like that right now. So that's a good thing. And customer concentration hopefully actually broadens over time with the sovereigns and some of these emerging companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, and others that are going to be well capitalized for a long time. A lot of folks, if these companies IPO'd, there'd be a line down Wall Street to invest. So, I think we're going to be okay. But yes, it is something we monitor quite a bit.
Ben, what do you think NVIDIA's future looks like in China? I ask because they said on the call that the Trump administration still has yet to codify the 15% of sales that they have for some of those chips that are purchased by China. Beijing has encouraged a move away from U.S. technology and AI systems. So, how do you see that all playing out?
Well, there's probably in the stock a little bit of optimism around China still, and the stock ran up on that. But it's not in anybody's models mostly, or it's in some folks' models for the next few years. But most of the street doesn't have it in there. And so the risk you have in not owning the stock is that street numbers go up over 15% over the next few months if things calm down. Now, that being said, most of the numbers on the street are going to reflect everything outside of China, which is still very robust. And so with regard to China itself, it does seem like there's tensions a little bit like on both sides where right now, it does feel like a lot of this, for the H20 at least, is in the CCP's court, where there was some reaction to some comments and whatnot that, they were going to be using some of the lower end chips and whether they want China to, and the companies there to be buying the lower end chips after someone said something about it, et cetera. And I just think that the two countries will work this out. I think that there's likely a trade deal coming. And this will work itself out. I think President Trump is very commercial regarding Jensen's views that the world needs an American stack that can dominate the AI world, not just the United States, and that it's international interest actually to do so that the Chinese don't create a Chinese software stack that runs AI that they can export to our allies. So I think it will get worked out. I'm not sure if it's by the fourth quarter or some point next year, but we're optimistic that it happens. And we know there's some hawks in the Trump administration, but it does seem like President Trump is working with Jensen actually commercially on this. I just hope the two countries work it out and we can see it kind of materialize at least by the fourth quarter, because then that's another positive.
Ben, here's just maybe it's philosophical, maybe it's technical. The idea that NVIDIA sells into China and that somehow pushes Huawei out, I accept that it would push out their market share. The question is the mother of invention. Do you not believe that Huawei and some of these other chip makers will ever be able to catch up, and that therefore the incentive won't be there for them to do such a thing, nor that the Chinese government would want to almost incentivize them to do such a thing? That's the question about this sort of central issue around whether we should be selling in or not to China, and whether we actually, if we do, we somehow push them out?
Andrew, the world of AI is about developers. And the reason we, a few years ago recommended NVIDIA and what we saw, or at least what we think, is that they have the most developers developing AI applications on their platform. You win the developers, you win the race, okay? Apple won the mobile race in terms of profitability, not because of market share, but because they had the best app store that monetized application developers' ideas. In a way, NVIDIA's like that. They have the best ecosystem where you will monetize your AI applications if you use an NVIDIA stack, period, full stop. You win that, you win the race. And, Huawei and Chinese companies probably don't have the same advantage that NVIDIA has. And these little decisions NVIDIA made maybe years ago turn out to be huge outcomes later in a natural market environment. And we would like to see that proceed. And I think that Jensen is advocating that the world running on an NVIDIA stack is a safer place. China's developers, while they could get pressure from their government to do a certain thing and try to use something else, if the NVIDIA stack monetizes AI, they will use it. And that's what we're risking here. Would you rather have NVIDIA control the AI stack globally or somebody that may not be on our team? And I think that that's the question here.
In the last 20 seconds, just sum it up. What's your price target?
Price target 240, and we'd be buyers on weakness and think they're on track. The sequential growth shows that there's probably not much to worry about here.
I guess the question, Jason, is NVIDIA, are you as a stockholder worried that 56% of their accounts receivable are three companies?
Yeah, we're not worried at all because, as Christina pointed out, these are the companies with the most financial firepower, and they continue to spend. And that's what they tell us every quarter. The hyperscalers are saying we're spending a ton of money. And to just put that into context, Christina mentioned that, Kress, the CFO of NVIDIA on the call, mentioned that 3 to 4 trillion. If you look at that through the end of decade, that's 600 to 700 billion a year. That's almost a doubling of CapEx. So, we think the money is still flowing, and it's flowing to the best chip within the AI complex, and that's NVIDIA.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if those companies, whether it's 3 or 1, 10, if they keep spending, do you care? Because obviously the risk is if one of those 3 were to slow down, you have a sizable percentage hit to the accounts receivable, thus the valuation of the stock, thus it has to come down in price.
Yeah, sure. There are always risks, right? That's just part and parcel of owning equities, and there's always risk to growth in any business. But it's about visibility for us, and it's about being able to place a high probability on earnings. And look, we think NVIDIA is going to do $6 on earnings over the next 4 quarters. That puts the stock at 30 times. And I think the market is discounting that deceleration of growth that you guys have been talking about. And it's still good growth rate, though. These guys have grown revenues north of 50% for 9 straight quarters. And we think that the stock going forward continues to compound at a 20+% rate of growth. And I think that's a strong position to be in for the best company.
You broke the numbers yesterday. You're part of the team breaking the numbers on NVIDIA. Now that you've had some time to digest, take me through some of your takeaways.
Yeah, if you're looking at the earnings that they reported yesterday, they were actually pretty decent compared to the street's expectations, but we did not see this type of surprise guidance moving forward, and rightfully so. Obviously, they have some geopolitical headwinds that they did actually kind of note here. When you're looking at the revenue, it did come in at $46.74 billion. Street was looking for around $46.06 billion, and the adjusted earnings per share came in at $1.05. Street was looking for $1.01. Now, when you're looking at the data center segment, it did actually miss slightly, coming in at $41.1 billion. Street was looking for $41.34 billion, but obviously they did have some issues with shipping the H20 chips. They did take a write-down as well, and their guidance moving forward also reflects the fact that they may not be able to ship H20s to China for this current quarter as well. And so the guidance actually came in, let's just say, a little bit lighter than what the street may have expected. Usually we do see around a $5 billion guidance beat compared to analyst expectations. We only saw around a $2 $2 to $2.5 billion beat when you're looking at the guidance moving forward for next quarter. But what's actually interesting, the report, when it came out, they kind of talked about the H20s and their lack of guidance, but on the conference call, their CFO did mention that if they were able to sell to China, it could be between $2 billion to $5 billion, which if you kind of back that in, that could actually hit the street's expectations or even exceed the street's expectations. They're still waiting on formal documentation from the U.S. government in order to kind of proceed with those H20 chips. So it still remains to be very volatile, but overall, they were able to, once again, meet the street's expectations, exceed the street's expectations, and it's still within the expected move. We were expecting around a $9 move either to the upside or downside, and we're only down about 1%, 1.3% right now in pre-market. So we're holding up for now, and now we're going to be focusing on economic data as well as Fed commentary.
Okay. One of the things that's interesting about the China piece of the puzzle there for NVIDIA, I was talking to an analyst yesterday. She's been covering NVIDIA for years. Before it was like even on our radar in the sense of how much we cover it, how much of a heavyweight, I mean, it's the heavyweight of heavyweights here. And one of the things she said was she doesn't know why the street is so hung up on the China piece. And it does feel like it's become kind of, or NVIDIA has become a pawn in this chess match between the U.S. and China. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about, let's say, $8 billion a quarter, it does kind of matter over the longer term. But China is a huge market, and really, that's the kind of the focus for NVIDIA. When you're looking at their sales, obviously they're focusing on the hyperscalers right now, and then sovereigns, which continues to see a significant amount of demand. But China, over time, could also be a very big market and actually expand the tangible, addressable market for NVIDIA. But if you're kind of looking at the revenue mix right now compared to the data center players here in the United States, it is a small portion of that, but I think it's the longer term focus and aspect of these chips kind of going to China that really does kind of make a difference here. But you're right. In the near term, if they are not able to sell the H20s, they still have enough demand out there to really, obviously, show really good fundamental results when it comes to their business just in general. But once again, over time, the China exposure could actually add up. And even Jensen Huang kind of mentioned that trying to get a Blackwell chipset to China is also something that they would look forward to, and they continue to advocate with the White House because they want to be the ones that kind of have that first mover advantage and not allow China to really catch up when it comes to the technology. So very balanced commentary coming from Jensen Huang yesterday on the conference call. But overall, is it a small piece now? Yes. Could it be a very bigger piece in the future? That's also true.
Understood. Okay, all right, and it looks like, in terms of where the sell side is, they're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I see a bunch of price target hikes off the back of the results.